So I can start now.
Yes, sir. Carry on.
Okay. So आदरणीय राय अध्यापकर कुम प्रिय पट्टा विद्यार्थी कल कुम एंडे namaskaram. So greetings from Varanasi and good evening to one and all, especially Principal Sri Saji sir, Srimati Suja KS, head of the department, and colleagues of Department of History and other. I know Anup and many others are there. Warm welcome to all of you and greetings from Varanasi, the cultural capital of India. So first of all, I would like to elaborate on Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. So I will begin with a few words on Azadi and Amrit and why there is a need to celebrate the 75th year of independence. Azadi, as we all know, is independence, and it has several other words also, like Swatantrata, Swadhin, and one of the words that is Swadhin means Sukyadhin, that is you are under goodness. So independence means in a way to be under goodness. Amrit, that is elixir, and as the mythology goes, there was a tussle between the Devtas and the Danavs, that is the gods and the demons, and there was a churning of the ocean where a mountain, Mandar mountain, was used, which is located in place near Bhagalpur, Bihar. And out of that, many things came out, and one was Amrit, that is elixir. But along with Amrit, we also had poison coming up, Vish jisko kehte hain. And Lord Shiva, who resides in Varanasi, as it is said, he was kind enough to drink that poison for all of us for the sake of humanity, and he was called Neelkant for that. So Platinum Jubilee, 75 years for a nation, for an independent nation. India as a independent state or nation state as we call, and 75 years, it's an achievement itself. Platinum is costlier than gold. It itself signifies the importance of 75 years. So we as teachers, as students, as citizens of this great country have to preserve certain ethos which our founding fathers of the Indian constitutions has enshrined. The spirit of that constitution needs to be adhered to so that we are able to build an India of their dream. So the topic, as we all know, is Indian freedom struggle unearthing untold stories. So if you try to see the whole history of our Indian independence movement, in a brief nutshell, if you see the decline of the Mughals, followed by the rise of Marathas, coming of the foreigners, starting with, but the major powers were the Britishers and the French, and India witnessed a rivalry between the Anglo-French. And you must have studied all the three first, second, and third Carnatic wars. And later they moved to North India in Bengal, and the Battle of Palashi, followed by Battle of Buxar, and how they were able to establish their rule here. And then Anglo-Maratha struggle you see in the terms of first, second, and third war from 1775 to 1818, and the defeat of the Marathas. But what we see is the policies which was followed by the Britishers, subsidiary alliance by Wellesley, doctrine of lapse by Dalhousie, and the drastic change they brought in the administrative structure, that all had a impact on the political scenario of India, its people, and its everything. So what we see, we have a series of generally when we talk about the first war of independence 1857, but before that we have a series of peasant movement, we have popular movements, and also we have some tribal movements. And then in the mid 19th century, we come up with socio-religious movement. And then later on, we pass on to the Indian national movement and establishment of Indian National Congress in 1885, and 1885 to 1905, the phase of moderates, and the second was led by the extremists, the 1905 to 1919. But with the rise of Gandhi, coming of Gandhi in 1915, and his series of movements, Champaran in 1917, and then non-cooperation, then civil disobedience and Quit India movement, we find the whole era till is the Gandhian movement. And then we have the role of Indian National Army, we have the role of many others. So many people were there. So Subhash Chandra Bose and many others. So what we will be highlighting today will be the role of the tribals, and the marginalized sections of the society, and in which I would like to say, because briefly we'll just talk about how the historiography, the Indian national movement and history writing has many trends. And we all are aware, we have a nationalist trends, we have the imperialist trends, we have the Marxist trends. Then we have the coming up of the feminists and the subaltern. But the coming of the subaltern, the different strands of historiography, I would suggest the students to go through the book by Bipin Chandra, edited book, that India's struggle for independence. You will find all this explanation of the different strands of history writing. But we will briefly talk about the subaltern approach, that is the history from below. The trend in historiography is the subaltern approach, the history from below, which is people's history. And in India, you know, it was initiated by Ranjit Guha in his subaltern studies in early 1980s. They challenged all the previous historiography, that like colonial history writing or the nationalist or the Marxist. And their perception, if you go by what they write, they believe that the Indian people were never united in a common and anti-imperialist struggle. And there was no such entity as the Indian national movement. Instead, they assert that there were two distinct movements or streams, the real anti-imperialist stream of the subalterns and the other national movement of the elite. What they are trying to highlight is that the Indian national movement, the real Indian national imperial was led by the subalterns. And the subaltern history has always focused on the history of peasants, history of women, history of the marginalized sections of the society. And we have the role of the tribals. So we will just see what was the role of the marginalized sections. So subaltern history, in a way, which started around 1980s, that gave a great impetus to the role of the non-elites, you can say, or the role of the what we have been seeing for the last so many years, the writing of the mainstream history to others, what was their role in the history. And from this perspective, if you will try to see, then we will see the role of the tribals, the tribal movements against the British colonial rule. And we have a series of movements taking place against the British rule. They were both tribals as well as non-tribals. Briefly, just in South India, you must be knowing some of the important non-tribal movements. You must be aware about being in Kerala, the revolt of Velu Thambi in 1808 to 1809 in Travancore, Kerala. That was due to the subsidiary alliance treaty imposed on them. And that was led by Velu Thampi, the Diwan of Travancore. Then we have the another important, that is the Kittur rising, Kittur near Dharwar in Karnataka. And Rani Chinnamma is known all over India and everybody knows. So, but if you shift to the other tribal movements in the 19th and 20th century, with my focus being in North India, especially Bihar and Jharkhand, we will see a series of tribal revolts which were taking place prior to 1857 and even after 1857. So we have the Hos, the tribes, the different tribes. The Hos, they revolted in 1820, 1822, 1832, and that was in the region of Chota Nagpur. Jharkhand as a state has emerged by bifurcating from Bihar, but the region was called as Chota Nagpur, Singhbhum and Chota Nagpur, and the Hos were, after just dealing with a few names of the revolts, we'll try to analyze what were the reasons behind these tribal movements or the tribal revolts. Second important was the coal insurrection in 1831-32 in the Chota Nagpur region, that was led by the Buddho Bhagat. And this was very important in the sense that it was first well organized and widespread tribal revolt. And Charles Metcalfe, he wrote that this cold revolt was not only an expression of the discontentment prevalent among the tribal peasants, but it was the tribals' fight for their independence and getting rid of the British rule. So that was in 1830s, 31 and 32. You find, but as we all know that the British colonial power had better arms, they had better managed military system or army system or police system, so they were always able to put down the revolts which were on a smaller scale, not on a pan India, what the subaltern has tried to show, that we had certain revolts or movements taking place in different parts of India. So after the Cold War, what we see is the Santhal revolt. So Santhal revolt, we have a region called Santhal Pargana in Jharkhand still today. And this was in the mid 19th century. That was 1855-56, just before the first war of independence. And that was in the region of Rajmahal Hills. Earlier it was in Bihar. And it was led by four tribals, but Sidhu and Kanu were the main. Another two were Cham and Vairab. Okay. So this revolt of Santhals, and they were able to establish their own government by July 1815. But they were again defeated by the British force under Major Borough was there. And the military intervention, and we find the final suppression of the revolt by end of 1856. So Santhal revolt also, you will see what were the background. They also started with certain economic reasons, but they had certain reasons to revolt because economically they were finding it difficult to survive due to the land policies and other things, which we will discuss in general, what were the reasons behind the tribals uprisings. But the revolt of the Santhals that took another shape, that was the end of the British rule. They start with the economic exploitation against that, against the jamindars, against the moneylenders, but then they see that these people are being held by the British colonial rule. So the ultimate they shift to that the British rule must end. So the war against landlords and moneylenders. So they burnt all government documents which were kept in courts because many of them were in debt and many other things. They burnt police stations, railway stations, postal vans, and etc. But what you find is that the Santhals rebellion was finally suppressed by the Britishers. But what happened that the Britishers had to satisfy the tribals, so they created a separate district of Santhal Pargana after this revolt. But one of the most important, before we shift to other areas, like we're talking about the main Birsa Munda and his uprising in 1899 to 1900, I would like to talk about a revolt called of Tilka Manchi. Tilka Manchi, because just as you Santhal revolt, Sidhu Kanu, so they gradually got recognition with passage of time, and the Jharkhand government has named one of the universities after Sidhu Kanu. Sidhu Kanu University in Dumka in Jharkhand, and we have a lady vice chancellor. She's a tribal. She's a product of JNU, and likewise Tilka Manjhi was also not given his due. In fact, many did not know his name, even in Bihar and Jharkhand, that we had, and many have proclaimed that he was the first freedom fighter who single-handedly challenged the British rule. And the story of Tilka Manjhi became popular when noted Bengali writer Mahasweta Devi, who is a recipient of Gyanpith Award and many other awards, and many films were also made out of her novels. So she wrote a novel on Tilka Manchi. That was Salgira Ki Pukar Par, whatever be the name in Hindi or whatever. But Tilka Manjhi, he was born around in 1750 and he was hanged to death on 13th January 1785. So he had a small lifespan of 35 years. So he fought the British some 100 years before our revolt of 1857. He led the tribal revolt against the British right from 1771 to 1784. That was called the Tilka Andolan or Tilka Revolt. So he was able to wrest some of the camps from the Britishers. He also forged a alliance with the other tribals who were called as Pahadiyas, their sardars or their chiefs. He killed the district magistrate, a British officer, Augustus Cleveland. But after that, the British were mad because their ICS officer was killed. So they launched a major offensive against him. Tilka Manjhi was captured. He was tied to 4 horses and he was dragged up to the city of Bhagalpur. And Bhagalpur happens to be the ancient city of Ang. That was the 16 Mahajanpads or the 16 kingdoms which emerged in the 6th century BC. It also finds a mention in the Mahabharata as Angdesh, and Karna was the ruler. Duryodhan made him the ruler of Ang. So Bhagalpur was also one of the oldest commissioner town during the British period. So he was dragged to Bhagalpur. Even after being dragged for miles, he was alive. That speaks about the guts or the bravery of that person. And he was hanged from a tree on 13 January 1785. But I would like to say that Tilka Manjhi gradually got his due when Mahasweta Devi wrote a novel on him. And the government, the Bhagalpur University, was named after Tilka Manjhi as Tilka Manjhi Bhagalpur University. So that was giving a long awaited recognition to one of the earliest freedom fighters of India, what we can say. So, we are able to move on to now one of the famous revolt led by Birsa Munda. And Birsa Munda, in fact, among the tribal freedom fighters, he was given quite his due. And we have Bhagwan Birsa Munda International Airport at Ranchi, the capital of Jharkhand. We have Birsa Munda University, Agriculture University in Ranchi. We have Birsa Munda Chowk. So we have so many things. Birsa Munda bus stand, Birsa Munda, and he was referred as Bhagwan. Bhagwan, that is God. So the tribals referred him to God because this movement not only had a economical or political connotation, but it also shifted to some sort of religious movement among the tribals. So Birsa Munda, if you try to see, this was the most extensive and the most organized tribal revolt. If you compare it with the coal insurrection, which took place in the 1831-32, which was among the first, but if you try to analyze on the basis of the impact or the geographical areas which they covered, so this particular revolt, the Munda revolt led by Birsa Munda in 1899-1900 in Chota Nagpur region, that is Jharkhand, it was the most extensive and organized tribal revolt. It was also referred as the Munda Ulgulan. Ulgulan, that is the tribal word which they used it. So if you try to see, so the Birsa Munda's Munda uprising was just a continuation of the several previous revolts of the tribals, few of them which we have just discussed, the majority of them being the coal insurrection or the Santhal rebellion. So if you try to see the background, so The land ownership issue, if you see the whole history of the British colonial rule, somehow we see how they managed to change our traditional land ownership system with a system which benefited them. So the permanent settlement in Bengal, which starts, or the Mahalwari system, which starts in Punjab or many other places. So tribals, land ownership issue was a major issue, and that is very much present in the Munda uprising also. But the other issue was also linked to that, was the issue of the landlords that referred as zamindars. And the zamindars versus individual tribals, what will be their role? What will be their title to land? And with passage of time, what you see, the tribals in general, they were resenting their end of their autonomy. The Britishers, as they made inroads into North India, inroads from major cities to smaller cities, they wanted full control over the tribal areas, over their lands. The Britishers considered the tribal society generally, if in a sociological angle, if you try to see, is considered as an egalitarian society, where the chief is considered as a first among the equals. But the Britishers, what this highlighted and what they were view, that these tribal chiefs, they are foolish, they are superstitious, they are cruel, they are just comfort seekers. So we have to change the scenario. You can also link it with the white man's burden theory. White man's burden theory, with that theory of that the Britishers or the Europeans have the agenda of civilizing the whole world, generally Asia, Africa, and South America. The people there are not civilized. And the white men are only in Europe. A white man residing in India is a black man or a woman. So you can also link it with that white man's burden theory. So Britishers now, in the areas which they had gradually made inroads, they created infrastructure, keeping in view the security, trade and commerce interest, and administrative requirements. So Lord Cornwallis, he wanted the Adivasis of Jharkhand to follow the British laws as it was prevalent in the other British Indian states. Another reason was the economic exploitation, permanent settlement, the role of the zamindars, taxes, which we call as Lagan. And you have a famous film of Lagan by Amir Khan. So Lagan was also a major issue. The role played by the landlords and the moneylenders, the sahukars, they were all exploiting these tribals. And another issue was that the people who were these zamindars and the sahukars, they were non-tribals, who had come to these regions from other regions. They had settled down there, and instead of being in consonance with the tribal people, they were rather exploiting these people. Moneylenders were exploiting because the tribals were generally in debt. To pay the debt, they had to sell their lands, and the lands were being bought by the moneylenders. Tribals have a very close relationship with forest. Even today, when we come up with forest laws, the major issue being debated in media, whether it's print media or electronic media, is the rights of the tribals. How tribal societies, which have hundreds of years of long tradition of living in a forest area. The ancient tradition was that village should be near the forest, and symbiotic relationship should exist, creating a eco-friendly or environment-friendly society where every organism survives. So that particular ethos, which is present in the tribal social structure or in their life or in their thought, that was being challenged when you find the new forest laws coming up in 1870, which was amended in 1875. The whole forest was brought under the British control. So this was resented by the tribals, and we have series of tribal revolts in the region of Jharkhand led by different tribal groups. So this was also one of the backgrounds of the tribal revolt which was taking place. Later it took a shape political as well as religious. The religious point of view is very important, that they founded a new religious cult. So Birsa Munda came up with a new religious sect, and he called that Singh Bonga. He termed it as the only true God. So he is referring to one tribal god which is referred as Singh Bonga, and this happens in the year 1895. So Birsa Munda is having a large following among the tribals, the Munda tribes, and one of the reasons was also that the Christian missionaries were working on a large scale, and somewhere one of the reasons for the revolt of the tribals was also that they somehow believed that their traditional tribal religion, that based on shamanism or whatever, in anthropology we have different terms, animism, whatever they have the tree cult, believe in spirits, whatever be there, that is being sidelined by the increasing conversion taking place in the tribal areas. So Birsa Munda somehow gave a religious color to his whole movement by declaring that Singh Bonga is the only true God. So all the tribals who were his followers were to adhere to one God, that is monotheism only, and one God is Singh Bonga. So the British feared that Birsa Munda's preachings among the Mundas is somehow not in line with their policies. So he was arrested, he was imprisoned around 1895 to 97. He is in jail. Then he was released. Then he again revived his doctrines in around 1898. And 1899, the real revolt starts with the revolt of the Mundas, their attack on the churches, their attack on the police stations. And now you see the two symbols of attack, the church and the police station. That symbolized the British power, police station. Church symbolized the Christian missionary. Christian missionaries in a way represented the British colonial power during that time. So now it was high time for the Britishers. So what you find that the British army they marched against, and the Mundas, they were defeated. Because what you will find even today, if you see a picture of Bhagwan Birsa Munda, he's shown with a bow and an arrow. He bow and arrow. So they are fighting with bow and arrow, and they are fighting with guns. So it's obvious that the Britishers were able to crush these tribal movements, and Birsa Munda was captured. He was put into jail, and then we have a series of incidents that trial is going on. Then he fell sick. He was being examined by the doctors, but finally the British government declared that he died due to cholera in jail in June 1900. But what was the reason behind everything was not known. So what we see is that with the death of Birsa Munda, with the death of Birsa Munda, you find that the whole this Birsa Munda revolt almost comes to an
Excuse me.
end. We have
Excuse me, sir,
certain
one second. May I interrupt you?
effect.
Please, organizers, Anub, remove this fellow, Praful Prabhakar.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So
Sir, carry on.
what we see that Munda revolt, the death of Birsa Munda comes to an end, but the legacy which Birsa Munda left behind was carried forward. How it was carried forward is think that the Britishers were made to rethink about the tribal areas, and they had to come up with the Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act. They had to come up with certain administrative changes, like tribal areas like Gumla, they were made into subdivision. And later on in the 20th century, around 1916, and we have another tribal movement coming up in the name of Tana Bhagat. So the continuity of the tribal movement continues. And Birsa Munda legacy was carried forward by other tribals. And what if you try to see that very identity of the tribals or the tribal identity perhaps played a major role in the creation of the state of Jharkhand, which was led by Jharkhand Mukti Morcha, which was led by the tribal leaders like Shibu Soren and others. But with passage of time in history, place, period, person, everything plays an important role. So you have a change. But if you just try to see so many rebellion, coal insurrection, Santhal, and then Birsa Munda, Tilka Manjhi, and carrying forward by Tana Bhagats. So you have a whole list of tribal peasant movements. So you can find it in any standard textbook. But their contribution somehow got lost in what the subalterns call the mainstream, which they call is not the real Indian national movement. What they try to highlight that the role played by the tribals, the peasants, and many others, marginalized sections, they also played a very important role in the coming up of our freedom struggle, gaining of our independence, and the end of the British colonial rule. If you try to analyze the reasons for series of tribal revolts, right from coal insurrection to Birsa Munda, at the core was the resentment against the extension of British rule in their areas. So everybody resists change. This is psychologically speaking, we do resist change, and always which are major changes. So secondly, they resented against the penetration of their areas by non-tribals, which they called as Dikus, Dikus. The non-tribals were referred as Dikus. The money lenders, the traders, the contractors. And what was that? These Dikus, like the money lenders, the landlords, and the contractors, they were protected by the British colonial rule. In fact, the British government continued to its exploitative policy through these people who were Indians, the money lenders, the traders, the zamindars, the landlords. So a major reason for all the tribal revolts in Chota Nagpur, Jharkhand, Birsa Munda or Santhal or other, was this resentment against the penetration of their areas by non-tribals, as well as the policies and extension of the British rule in their area, and the connivance which the both had. The zamindar, the landlords, playing in the hands of the British colonial rule. And thirdly, the reaction against the activities of the Christian missionaries in their areas. And in this, this Munda rebellion fits into, because they came up with their own notion of religion, their cult, somehow to protect the tribal identity. So the reaction against the activities of the Christian missionaries, gradually when they penetrated the inside areas of Jharkhand. So what you will feel is that the issue was somehow political, economic, social, religious. If you try to link it, so many linkages are very much there. And as we have discussed, tribal rights over forest was very much there. The British control over the forest zones for maximum revenue generation, because British, they tried to extract maximum and maximum, and that is a part of the colonial economy. And lastly, because with the coming of the Britishers, coming of the Christian missionaries, somehow the tribals felt that their traditions, their identity is being eroded away. So the reaction against that was also a prevalent cause for these tribal revolts. But these tribal revolts were, whatever you, if you discuss it, they were localized areas. They did not have a pan-India one movement. But at the local level, they did have a major impact on the tribals, and somehow they carried forward the legacy also. And Birsa Munda is still today favored among the tribals of Chota Nagpur and the Jharkhand region as a great personality, being referred as Bhagwan itself shows its his great achievement and other things. So I think I have taken enough of my time. Saiju sir?
Sir, you can wind up.
But concluding, I would just address to the students, as students of history and as students of social science, we need to have analytical understanding of all the processes which are taking place in the historical context. And I would like to end with a quotation on education. And whatever we study, the concept of freedom, the role of British colonial rule, a series of local heroes who played their important role in the Indian national movement. But our aim as teacher is that the students should be able to raise certain pertinent analytical questions. And I would like to quote from Julius Henry, Is Education Possible? And he writes, for education is a question of enlightenment. And enlightenment is a question of the freedom to ask questions. And every status quo will oppose the freedom to ask questions. And a worldly education must therefore teach stupidity and dullness. And education as enlightenment must therefore question the world, and education as enlightenment must therefore both love and hate the world and oppose all status quos. So that is our aim, that by knowing the history of our unsung heroes or Indian freedom struggle, unearthing untold histories, we are able to take forward the discourse forward and able to oppose the status quo in our discourse of history, discourse of freedom, discourse of national movement, discourse of India as a nation, and discourse of taking forward our great nation forward in the 21st century to further to the next generation, to the next 22nd century. Jai Hind. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, sir, for your insightful words. The message was very clear. The different identities that calibrated the moment of freedom struggle, ultimately resulting in India's independence. So we will have a detailed question answer session after a few minutes. Let me go through a small presentation on some interesting topics. Hope all of you will get some kind of a new knowledge or information about what I am going to say. Dr. Sanjeev, ആദിവാസികൾ നേരിടുന്ന പ്രശ്നങ്ങളെ പറ്റിയും പ്രത്യേകിച്ചും ജാർഖണ്ഡിനെ പറ്റി സാറിൻ്റെ റിസർച്ച് ഔട്ട്കം ആണ് ഇന്ന് ഈ പരിപാടിയിലൂടെ വെബിനാറിലൂടെ നമുക്ക് കേൾക്കാൻ കഴിഞ്ഞത്. പ്രത്യേകിച്ചും ആദിവാസികൾ ഒരു മാർജിനലൈസ്ഡ് കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റി ആയിട്ട് കുറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന ഈ സന്ദർഭത്തിൽ സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യ സമരത്തിന് അവർ നൽകിയ കോൺട്രിബ്യൂഷൻ, അതിനെപ്പറ്റി എല്ലാവരും അറിയുന്നത് നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിലുള്ള എല്ലാ ആൾക്കാർക്കും, നമ്മുടെ ഭാരതത്തിലെ എല്ലാ ദേശവാസികൾക്കും വളരെ ഗുണകരമാണ്. ഞാൻ ഒരു ചെറിയൊരു പ്രസന്റേഷൻ വഴി കുറച്ച് ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റിംഗ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ നിങ്ങളുടെ മുന്നിൽ അവതരിപ്പിക്കാൻ പോവുകയാണ്. അപ്പോൾ മാക്സിമം 10 മിനിറ്റിനുള്ളിൽ വൈൻഡപ്പ് ചെയ്യാം. പ്ലീസ് ഹോൾഡ് ഓൺ. ഈ പ്രസന്റേഷൻ ഗംഗ, ബനാറസ് ഹിന്ദു യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി, ഈ 3 തീമിനെ ആസ്പദമാക്കിയാണുള്ളത്. എൻ്റെ സ്ക്രീൻ എല്ലാവർക്കും കാണാൻ പറ്റുമോ? ഓക്കെ, താങ്ക് യു സർ. ആദ്യത്തെ ഒരു തീമാറ്റിക് റെപ്രസെന്റേഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് റിവർ ഗംഗയുടെ ഒറിജിൻ മുതൽ അതിൻ്റെ അവസാനം വരെ, ഗംഗ ബേ ഓഫ് ബംഗാളിൽ പതിക്കുന്നത് വരെ ഉള്ള 2500 കിലോമീറ്ററിനടുത്ത് ഓരോ സ്ഥലത്തും അതിൻ്റെതായിട്ടുള്ള ഓരോ ഇമ്പാക്റ്റ് പ്രത്യേകിച്ചും സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യ സമരവുമായിട്ട് ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടുണ്ടായിട്ടുണ്ട്. കുറച്ച് സ്ഥലങ്ങളെ ഞാൻ ഹൈലൈറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് കാണിക്കുന്നു. ആ സ്ഥലങ്ങളെ പറ്റി സഞ്ജീവ് സാർ ഓൾറെഡി പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്. പക്ഷെ എന്നാലും കുറച്ച് പിക്ചേഴ്സ് മതി, നമുക്ക് അതിനെ കുറച്ചും കൂടി കാര്യമായിട്ട് മനസ്സിലാക്കാൻ ശ്രമിക്കാം. I hope all of you realize the importance of Plassey War and these 3 people who played a very important role in it. One was a traitor, the other person was the Nawab, fought against the British, and the representative of East India Company, Robert Clive. ഗംഗയിലൂടെ സഞ്ചരിക്കാൻ നേരത്ത് അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് മുർഷിദാബാദ്, ആ സമയത്ത് ബംഗാളിലെ മുർഷിദാബാദ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന പട്ടണം ഒരു വളരെ പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ഒരു സ്ഥലമായിരുന്നു. സാമ്പത്തികമായിട്ടും സാംസ്കാരികമായിട്ടും മുന്നോട്ട് നിൽക്കുന്ന ഒരു സ്ഥലം. പ്ലാസിയിൽ വെച്ചുണ്ടായുള്ള യുദ്ധം ശരിക്കും പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഭാരതത്തിന്റെ മുഴുവൻ നിയന്ത്രണത്തിലാക്കാൻ ഇവർക്ക് കഴിഞ്ഞു. അപ്പോൾ എൻ്റെ തുടക്കം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് കൽക്കട്ട ഹൂഗ്ലിയുടെ തീരത്തിലൂടെ മുർഷിദാബാദ് വഴിയുള്ള യാത്രയിൽ ഇന്ത്യയിലെ തന്നെ ആളുടെ സഹകരണത്തോടെ മീർ ജാഫർ, നിങ്ങൾക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും അറിയാം, റോബർട്ട് ക്ലൈവുമായിട്ടുള്ള ധാരണയിൽ സിറാജ് ദൗളയെ അധികാരത്തിൽ നിന്ന് പുറത്താക്കുകയും ക്രമേണ ആ ഭാഗത്തെ കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ബിസിനസ് ഓപ്പർച്യൂണിറ്റി ഈസ്റ്റ് ഇന്ത്യ കമ്പനി നേടിയെടുക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുന്നു. I hope all the students understand this locality because the British came through the river Hooghly and finally they reached Murshidabad. The Battle of Plassey, which made a very important role in the history of India, in which East India Company took complete control over political, economic, administration of the country. Now let us take the next state, which is Bihar, one of the very important state which played a very important role in freedom struggle of India. Look at Buxar. ഞാൻ പറയാൻ പോകുന്നത് ബക്സറിലെ യുദ്ധത്തെ പറ്റിയാണ്. വെസ്റ്റേൺ മോസ്റ്റ് ഡിസ്ട്രിക്ട് ബക്സർ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു പോയിന്റ് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് കാണാൻ പറ്റും. ഈ യുദ്ധത്തിൽ ഗൂഗിൾ മാപ്പിൽ നോക്കിക്കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് അതിന്റെ ഡീറ്റെയിൽസ് കിട്ടും. ഗംഗയുടെ തീരത്താണ് ബക്സർ ഉള്ളത്. ബക്സറിലെ യുദ്ധം വളരെ പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ഒരു യുദ്ധമായിരുന്നു. ഇതിൽ ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് ഈസ്റ്റ് ഇന്ത്യ കമ്പനി ആ സമയത്ത് അധികാരത്തിലുണ്ടായിരുന്ന ഷാ ആലം, മുഗൾ എംപററിനെ അധികാരത്തിൽ നിന്ന് പുറത്താക്കാൻ പറ്റിയ ഏറ്റവും നല്ല ഒരു അവസരമായി ഇത് കണക്കിലെടുത്തു. അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ കൂടെ ഷുജാഉദ് ദൗള, അവധ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ ഫൈസാബാദ്, അയോധ്യ ഡിസ്ട്രിക്റ്റിലെ നവാബായിരുന്ന ഷുജാഉദ് ദൗള, ഷാ ആലം എന്ന രണ്ട് മുഗൾ ശക്തികളെ ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് ആർമി, അതായത് ഹെക്ടർ മൺറോയുടെ നേതൃത്വത്തിൽ അവരെ പുറത്താക്കുകയും തുടർന്ന് അലഹാബാദിൽ വെച്ച് നടന്ന ട്രീറ്റിയിൽ ഷാ ആലത്തിന്റെ കംപ്ലീറ്റ് പവറും അവർ കയ്യിലെടുക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുന്നു. സോ ദിസ് പർട്ടിക്കുലർ വാർ അറ്റ് ബക്സർ ultimately resulted in unseating the Mughal rule in India. We can claim like that. And Mir Qasim, once upon a time he was a Nawab. He had to end his life in Agra at a very, very poor death that was waiting for him. According to William Dalrymple, the anarchy, when he died, there was not even a cloth his children could buy. That was the condition of Mir Qasim. Shah Alam lost his whole powers. Shujaud Dawla became a subordinate, just a subordinate to British East India Company. Let me take you to Banaras. Raja Chet Singh is a very important figure for Banaras. Kashi Naresh എന്ന് വിളിക്കുന്ന വാറൻ ഹേസ്റ്റിങ്സുമായിട്ട് നടന്ന ഒരു യുദ്ധത്തിന്റെ രീതിയിൽ തന്നെ വലിയൊരു യുദ്ധമല്ല, പക്ഷേ ആ കോൺഫ്ലിക്റ്റ് അൾട്ടിമേറ്റ്ലി റിസൾട്ടഡ് ഇൻ എ മേജർ റിവോൾട്ട്. ബനാറസിലെ തന്നെയുള്ള കുറച്ച് ആൾക്കാർ വാറൻ ഹേസ്റ്റിങ്സിന് സപ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്തിരുന്നു. രാജാ ചേത് സിംഗ് ബനാറസിലെ ആ സമയത്തെ അധികാരിയായിരുന്നു. ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് ഗവൺമെന്റിന് അദ്ദേഹം ടാക്സ് കൊടുക്കാൻ വിസമ്മതിച്ചതിന്റെ പേരിൽ വാറൻ ഹേസ്റ്റിങ്സ് അദ്ദേഹത്തെ യുദ്ധത്തിൽ കീഴ്പ്പെടുത്താൻ വേണ്ടി വരികയും ആ യുദ്ധം വളരെ പെട്ടെന്ന് തന്നെ ഫ്രീഡം സ്ട്രഗിളിന്റെ ഒരു ഭാവത്തിലേക്ക് മാറുകയും ചെയ്യുന്നു. ബനാറസിൽ നിങ്ങൾ വരികയാണെങ്കിൽ ഇപ്പോഴും ആ യുദ്ധത്തിൽ നഷ്ടപ്പെട്ട ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് ഓഫീസേഴ്സിന്റെ മരിച്ച സ്ഥലം കാണാൻ കഴിയും. And this particular war, this was a dispute in between the Raja of Banaras and Warren Hastings. Warren Hastings stayed in Banaras. He wanted to finalize the tax treaty between both of them, but the Chet Singh denied it to give any tax, and Warren Hastings declared war on him. There was a severe battle, and near the banks of River Ganga, a lot of people died, including British soldiers. And even you can come and see the plaques, which is on as a kind of memorial to these British officers. Ark Scott, you can read that name here. ഗംഗയുടെ തീരത്തുള്ള ഈ കാണുന്ന ബിൽഡിംഗ് ചേത് സിംഗ് ഫോർട്ട് എന്നാണ് അറിയപ്പെടുന്നത്. ആ സമയത്ത് ഇതിനോട് ചേർന്നുള്ള സ്ഥലത്തായിരുന്നു രാജാ ചേർ സിംഗ് താമസിച്ചിരുന്നത്. വാറൻ ഹേസ്റ്റിങ്സുമായിട്ടുള്ള യുദ്ധത്തിൽ ഇവര് ഈ ഫോർട്ടിൽ നിന്ന് സാധാരണ ഇവിടെയുള്ള മുക്കുവരുടെ സഹായത്തോടെ ഇവിടെയുള്ള ആൾക്കാരെ മല്ല എന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്, ബോട്ടിൽ മീൻ പിടിക്കുന്ന ആൾക്കാർ, അവരുടെ സഹായത്തോടെ ഇവിടുന്ന് രക്ഷപ്പെടുകയും പിന്നെ ആ ഭാഗത്ത് വളരെ വലിയൊരു യുദ്ധം നടക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുന്നു. ആ സമയത്ത് ജീവൻ നഷ്ടമായ അതോടുകൂടിയും അതിനുശേഷവും നടന്ന 1857 റിവോൾട്ടിലും കുറച്ച് ആൾക്കാർ ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് ഓഫീസേഴ്സ് മരിച്ചതിന്റെ ഇന്നത്തെ അവസ്ഥയാണ് ഈ കാണുന്ന പിക്ചർ. ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് സെമിറ്ററി ഇപ്പോഴും ബനാറസിലുണ്ട്. ഇത് ഗംഗയുടെ തീരത്ത് തന്നെയുള്ള ഒരു ക്രിസ്ത്യൻ സെമിറ്ററിയുടെ ഭാഗമാണ്. അപ്പം മരിച്ച ആൾക്കാരുടെ വിലയ്ക്കനുസരിച്ച് അവര് ആ സ്ട്രക്ചേഴ്സ്, അതിന്റെ ആ പൊസിഷൻ അനുസരിച്ചാണ് സ്ട്രക്ചേഴ്സ് നമുക്ക് കാണാൻ പറ്റും. ശരിക്കും ഇന്നത്തെ നിലയിൽ ഒരു അബാൻഡൻ പ്ലേസ് ആണ്, ആൾക്കാരാദ്യം പോകാറില്ല അവിടെ. So this particular place commemorates the death of the British officers and soldiers who were Christians, died in Banaras and around. I hope all of you know Kakori incident. Now, ഇനി ഞാൻ ശ്രദ്ധിക്കാൻ പോകുന്നു കാക്കോറി ട്രെയിനിൽ കവർച്ച അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ട്രെയിൻ റോബറി ആയിട്ട് ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് എൻക്വയറീസ് ആണ്. ലക്നൌവിനടുത്തുള്ള സ്ഥലമാണ് കാക്കോറി. ഏകദേശം 16 കിലോമീറ്റർ ലക്നൌവിൽ നിന്നും ദൂരെയാണ്. ഹിന്ദുസ്ഥാൻ റിപ്പബ്ലിക്കൻ ആർമി എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു ലോക്കൽ ഓർഗനൈസേഷൻ, അതിന്റെ കുറച്ച് വേണ്ടപ്പെട്ട ആൾക്കാർ, അതിൽ സംഘടിതമായി പ്രവർത്തിക്കുന്നവർ, ഒരു ട്രെയിൻ, ആ ട്രെയിനിൽ ക്യാഷ് പല സ്ഥലങ്ങളിൽ നിന്നും പല സ്റ്റേഷനിൽ നിന്നും കളക്ട് ചെയ്തിരുന്ന ടാക്സ് ഗുഡ്സ് ക്യാബിനിൽ വെച്ചിരുന്നു. അതിനെ ആക്രമിച്ച്, ഗാർഡിനെ ആക്രമിച്ച് ആ പണം കൈക്കലാക്കി ആ പണം വഴി ഈ സംഘടനയുടെയും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ദേശത്തിന്റെയും നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിലെ ആൾക്കാർക്ക് വേണ്ടി അത് ഉപയോഗിക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി ഒരു പ്ലാൻ തയ്യാറാക്കിയിരുന്നു. ആ ഇൻസിഡന്റിനെയാണ് കാക്കോറി ഇൻസിഡന്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. വളരെ പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ഒരു ഏടാണ് സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യ സമരത്തിലെ. So the pictures which you see here and the writings in Hindi which indicates the people who were part of this Kakori incident. And you don't believe that there are 4 people, they were sentenced to death. I want to take the name of Rajendra Lahiri, who went to the the British ബ്രിട്ടീഷുകാർ വധശിക്ഷയ്ക്ക് വിധിച്ചപ്പോൾ തൂക്കുമരത്തിലേക്ക് കയറിപ്പോയ ബനാറസിൽ നിന്നുമുള്ള ഒരു സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യ സമര സേനാനി രാജേന്ദ്ര ലാഹിരി, അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ കഥയാണ് ഞാൻ പറയുന്നത്. 1901 ബംഗ്ലാദേശിലെ, ഇന്നത്തെ ബംഗ്ലാദേശിലെ പാവന എന്ന് പറയുന്ന സ്ഥലത്ത് ജനിക്കുകയും 9 വയസ്സുള്ളപ്പോൾ ബനാറസിലെത്തുകയും ചെയ്ത ആളാണ് രാജേന്ദ്രനാഥ് ലാഹിരി. അദ്ദേഹം അനുശീലൻ സമിതി എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു സംഘടനയുടെ ഭാഗമായിരുന്നു. 9 വയസ്സുള്ളപ്പോൾ ബനാറസിലെത്തി. MA ഹിസ്റ്ററി ബനാറസ് ഹിന്ദു യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിൽ നിന്നും പഠിച്ചു. അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ അടുത്ത സുഹൃത്തുക്കളായിരുന്നു സച്ചീന്ദ്രനാഥ് സന്യാൾ, അങ്ങനെ കുറച്ച് വേണ്ടപ്പെട്ട ആൾക്കാർ. ഒരു മാഗസിന്റെ എഡിറ്റർ ആയിരുന്നു. ഈ കാഗോരി ഇൻസിഡന്റുമായിട്ട് ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട് 26 വർഷത്തില് 26 years he was sentenced to death. And there is a place when he moved to the the last moments, ആ സമയത്ത് ജയിലറോട് അദ്ദേഹം പറഞ്ഞ വാക്കുകൾ വളരെ പ്രാധാന്യമുള്ളതാണ്. അതായത്, ജയിലർ സാബ്, I am a Hindu. I believe in rebirth. I want to be born with a physically fit body in my next birth so that I can complete my unfinished task. So, ഇങ്ങനെ പറഞ്ഞ് വളരെ ധൈര്യപൂർവ്വം തൂക്കുമരത്തിലേക്ക് നടന്നുപോയ രാജേന്ദ്രനാഥ് ലാഹിരി, അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ ഓർമ്മകൾ ഇപ്പോഴും ബനാറസിനെ നമുക്ക് കാണാൻ പറ്റും. ബനാറസിലെ പല സ്ഥലങ്ങളിലും അദ്ദേഹം പഠിച്ച, അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് വേണ്ടപ്പെട്ട ഒരു സ്കൂളാണ് ഇത്. ഈ സ്ഥലത്തെ അറിയപ്പെടുന്നത് ബംഗാളി തോല എന്നാണ്. ഇദ്ദേഹം ഒരു ബംഗ്ലാദേശിൽ ജനിച്ചത്, ബംഗ്ല സംസാരിക്കുന്ന ഒരു ബംഗാളി ആയിരുന്നു. ഇപ്പോഴും ആൾക്കാർ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ ആ ദിവസം, പ്രധാന ആ ദിവസം ഇപ്പോഴും വളരെ അതിന്റെ വേർന്ന രീതിയിൽ, അതിനുവേണ്ടി ചേർന്ന രീതിയിൽ ആഘോഷിക്കാറുണ്ട്. Now let me take you to another person whose name we hardly heard, Jaydev Kapoor. Jaydev Kapoor ബനാറസ് ഹിന്ദു യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിൽ പഠിച്ച ഒരു സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യ സമര സേനാനിയാണ്. അദ്ദേഹം BSc-യും എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗും ആ സമയത്ത് ബനാറസ് എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗ് കോളേജ് എന്നാണ് അറിയപ്പെട്ടിരുന്നത് പഠിച്ച് അദ്ദേഹം താമസിച്ചിരുന്ന സ്ഥലത്തിന്റെ പേരാണ് ലിംഡി ഹോസ്റ്റൽ. ഈ ഹോസ്റ്റലിൽ പഠിച്ച് സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യ സമരത്തിന്റെ പല പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട കാര്യങ്ങളിലും ഇദ്ദേഹം പാർട്ടിസിപ്പേറ്റ് ചെയ്തു. അടുത്ത വ്യക്തി എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഭഗത് സിംഗ് ആണ്. അപ്പൊ ഭഗത് സിംഗിന്റെ ഒരു ഗുരു എന്ന രീതിയിൽ സംസാരിക്കാം. ഇവര് ഒരു ആംഡ് കോൺഫ്ലിക്റ്റ്, ഗാന്ധിജി നോൺ വയലന്റ് മൂവ്മെന്റുമായിട്ട് മുന്നോട്ട് പോയപ്പോൾ നോൺ വയലൻസുമായിട്ട് പോയി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യം കിട്ടുകയില്ല എന്ന ആശയവും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ബ്രിട്ടീഷുകാരെ ആയുധം കൊണ്ട് നേരിടുക എന്നുള്ള ആശയം കൊണ്ട് അതിന്റെ ആ സംഘടനയുടെ നേതൃത്വത്തിൽ സംഘടനാ ഭാരവാഹികളും നേതൃത്വമായിട്ട് ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട് നടന്ന കാര്യങ്ങൾ. ലാഹോർ കോൺസ്പിരസി നിങ്ങൾ പഠിക്കുന്നുണ്ടാവും ഹിസ്റ്ററിയിൽ. ആ സമയത്ത് ഗവർണർ ജനറൽ വൈസ്രോയി ആയിരുന്ന അയാളെ വധിക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി ബോംബ് തയ്യാറാക്കുക, ബോംബ് എറിയുക. ആ കൺസ്പിരസിയാണ് ലാഹോർ കോൺസ്പിരസി എന്നറിയപ്പെടുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ പിക്ചറിൽ നിങ്ങൾ കാണുന്നത് ഭഗത് സിംഗ് ആണ്. ഭഗത് സിംഗിനെ അറിയാത്ത ആരും ഇന്ത്യയിൽ ഉണ്ടാവുകയില്ല. വളരെ വേണ്ടപ്പെട്ട വളരെ ചെറിയ പ്രായത്തിൽ തന്നെ സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യത്തിനായി പോരാടുകയും മരിക്കുകയും ചെയ്ത ബ്രിട്ടീഷുകാർ വധശിക്ഷ വിധിച്ച ഭഗത് സിംഗ് ബനാറസിൽ വരികയും ഈ പറയുന്ന ജയദേവ് കപൂർ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ കൂടെ താമസിക്കുകയും ചെയ്തു കുറച്ചു നാൾ. അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് വേണ്ടി ബനാറസ് ഹിന്ദു യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയുടെ ഫൗണ്ടറായ പണ്ഡിറ്റ് മദൻ മോഹൻ മാളവ്യജിയുടെ അപ്പീൽ ലോർഡ് ഇർവിന് പോവുകയും അതിൽ 2 പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട കാര്യങ്ങൾ പറയുന്നതാണ് ഞാൻ ഈ ചുവന്ന അക്ഷരങ്ങളിൽ എഴുതിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഹീസ് എ വെരി യങ് ഫെലോ. ഹിസ് ഇന്റൻഷൻ വാസ് നോട്ട് പ്രോംപ്റ്റഡ് ബൈ എനി സെൽഫിഷ് ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ്. അത് പാട്രിയോട്ടിക് ഇമ്പൾസിന്റെ ഭാഗമായ ദേശത്തിന് വേണ്ടി മുന്നിട്ടിറങ്ങിയ ഒരു വ്യക്തി എന്ന നിലയിൽ വധശിക്ഷയിൽ നിന്നും ഇളവ് നൽകണമെന്ന് ആവശ്യപ്പെട്ട് ആ സമയത്ത് മാളവ്യജി നൽകിയ അപ്പീലാണ് ഈ പറയുന്ന സ്ക്രീനിൽ ഞാൻ കാണിക്കുന്നത്. ഇത് പറയാൻ കാരണം ഇദ്ദേഹം ബനാറസിൽ വരികയും ഈ ജയദേവ് കപൂർ അദ്ദേഹം ആ സമയത്ത് BHUവിന്റെ ഒരു സ്റ്റുഡന്റ് ആയിരുന്നു. അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ കൂടെ ലിംഡി ഹോസ്റ്റൽ, ആദ്യം കാണിച്ച ഈ ഹോസ്റ്റലിൽ താമസിച്ചിരുന്നു എന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. ബനാറസ് ഹിന്ദു യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി ഈ ദേശീയ തലത്തിൽ സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യ സമരത്തിന് വേണ്ടി വളരെയധികം കോൺട്രിബ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്ത ഒരു യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയാണ്. അതിന്റെ അടിസ്ഥാനപരമായിട്ട് ഫൗണ്ടർ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് പണ്ഡിറ്റ് മദൻ മോഹൻ മാളവ്യ, ഭാരതരത്ന. അലഹബാദിൽ ജനിക്കുകയും ബനാറസിൽ വന്ന് പ്രവർത്തിക്കുകയും ബനാറസ് ഹിന്ദു യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയുടെ എസ്റ്റാബ്ലിഷ്മെന്റും അതിന്റെ ഈ നിലയിൽ എത്തിക്കുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടിയുള്ള ആ ഡ്രീം വിഷ്വലൈസ് ചെയ്തിരുന്ന ഒരു മഹാനായ ഒരു വ്യക്തി. അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ പ്രൊഫഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ശരിക്കും വിദ്യാഭ്യാസം, എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ, ലോയിലായിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ ചൗരി ചൗര ഒരു ഇൻസിഡന്റ് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഓർമ്മയുണ്ടാവും. 1922 പോലീസ് സ്റ്റേഷൻ ആക്രമിക്കുകയും പോലീസ് സ്റ്റേഷൻ ആക്രമിച്ച് അവിടെ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്ന ആൾക്കാർ 1-2 ഉദ്യോഗസ്ഥന്മാരെ കൊലപ്പെടുത്തുകയും അതിൽ 225 പേര് ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് ഗവൺമെന്റ് ശിക്ഷിക്കുന്നതിൽ 170 പേർക്ക് വധശിക്ഷ നൽകുകയും ചെയ്തു. So Malaviji, without taking any fee, he argued for the case and 151 people were freed at the end because of his caliber and his ability. അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ കഴിവ് പ്രകാരം ഈ 151 പേരെ വധശിക്ഷയിൽ നിന്ന് മുക്തനാക്കാൻ മാളവ്യജിക്ക് കഴിഞ്ഞു എന്ന് പറയുന്നു. ഒരു വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ സ്ഥാപനത്തിന് വിഷ്വലൈസ് ചെയ്യും, അതായത് നമ്മൾക്കൊന്നും സ്വപ്നം പോലും കാണാൻ കഴിയാത്ത ആ സാഹചര്യത്തിൽ ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് ഗവൺമെന്റിന്റെ കടുംപിടുത്തങ്ങളിലൂടെ, അതായത് ഇന്ത്യക്ക് വേണ്ടി ഇന്ത്യയുടേതായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ സ്ഥാപനത്തെ ഉയർത്തിക്കൊണ്ടുവരുന്നതിൽ മാളവ്യജി ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങൾ നമുക്ക് മറക്കാൻ പറ്റുകയില്ല. മഹാത്മാഗാന്ധി അതുപോലെ തന്നെ വേണ്ട പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട എല്ലാ രാഷ്ട്രീയ നേതാക്കളും ആ സമയത്തുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അവരുടെ ഒപ്പം അദ്ദേഹം സഹകരിക്കുകയും അതേപോലെ തന്നെ സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യ സമരത്തോടൊപ്പം ഒരു വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ സ്ഥാപനത്തെയും കൂടി അതിന്റെ മൂല്യം നിലനിർത്തി എങ്ങനെ മുന്നോട്ട് കൊണ്ടുപോകണമെന്ന് കാണിച്ചു തരികയും ചെയ്ത ഒരു മഹാനായ വ്യക്തിയാണ് പണ്ഡിറ്റ് മദൻ മോഹൻ മാളവ്യ. ഒരു ബ്രീഫ് ലൈഫ് ഹിസ്റ്ററിയാണ് ഇവിടെ ക്രോണോളജിക്കലായിട്ട് ഞാൻ കൊടുത്തിരിക്കുന്നത്. വളരെ സാമ്പത്തികപരമായി പിന്നോക്കം നിൽക്കുന്ന ഒരു കുടുംബത്തിൽ ജനിക്കുകയും വിദ്യാഭ്യാസം നടത്തി അലഹബാദ് കോർട്ടിൽ പ്രാക്ടീസ് ചെയ്യും. 1904 ബനാറസ് ഹിന്ദു യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയുടെ കോൺസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂഷൻ തയ്യാറാക്കി അതിനുവേണ്ടി മുന്നോട്ടിറങ്ങുകയും ചെയ്ത് 1916 ഇതിന്റെ ഫൗണ്ടേഷൻ ഇടുകയും ചെയ്ത് അതിനുശേഷം 1939 വരെ 1939 he was the vice chancellor. When he resigned from vice chancellorship, he appointed Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, and Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, as all of you know, he was an educationist, philosopher. 1946 അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ അന്ത്യം സംഭവിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുന്നു. യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി ക്യാമ്പസ് ഒരു വലിയൊരു ക്യാമ്പസാണ് ബനാറസ് ഹിന്ദു യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയുടെ. അതൊരു റെസിഡൻഷ്യൽ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയാണ്. ഒത്തിരി ഫാക്കൽറ്റികൾ, ഇവിടെ ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റുകളെ ക്ലബ് ചെയ്ത് ഫാക്കൽറ്റി എന്ന് പറയും പോലെ ഒത്തിരി ഫാക്കൽറ്റികൾ ഈ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയുടെ ഉള്ളിലുണ്ട്. അതിന്റെ സെൻട്രൽ പോയിന്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ബിർള ടെമ്പിൾ ആണ്. ലൈബ്രറി, വളരെ അധികം കളക്ഷൻ ഉള്ള ഒരു നല്ലൊരു ലൈബ്രറി. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ സ്റ്റുഡൻസിന്റെ ലൈഫ് ക്യാമ്പസിന്റെ ഉള്ളിൽ വളരെ ഡിഫറെന്റ് ആണ്. ഒരു സാധാരണ ഒരു ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂഷൻ പോലെ അല്ല. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഇവിടുത്തെ ട്രഡീഷണൽ ഡിഗ്രി ഡിസ്ട്രിബ്യൂഷൻ ടൈം കോൺവൊക്കേഷൻ. സോ ഇൻ സമ്മറി, ഇതിന്റെ അന്ത്യമായ ഈ പ്രസന്റേഷന്റെ കംപ്ലീഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഒരു നാഷണലിസ്റ്റിക് ഫിലോസഫിയിലൂടെ നമ്മുടെ രാജ്യത്തിന്റെ സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യത്തിന് വേണ്ടി പ്രയത്നിക്കുകയും അതുപോലെ ഒത്തിരി സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യ സമര സേനാനികളെയും നമ്മുടെ രാജ്യത്തിന് വേണ്ടി ജോലി ചെയ്യുന്ന പലതരത്തിലുള്ള ആൾക്കാരെയും സംഭാവന ചെയ്ത ഒരു യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയാണ് ബനാറസ് ഹിന്ദു യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി. ഈ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിലെ വയനാട് പോലെയുള്ള ഒരു സ്ഥലത്തുനിന്ന് വന്ന് ജോലി ചെയ്യാൻ എനിക്കൊരു അവസരം കിട്ടിയതും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഇന്ന് നിങ്ങളോടെല്ലാം സംസാരിക്കാനുള്ള ഒരു അവസരം കിട്ടിയതും ഒരു വലിയൊരു ഭാഗ്യമായിട്ട് തന്നെ ഞാൻ കരുതുന്നു. ഇവിടുത്തെ അന്തരീക്ഷം, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഇവിടുത്തെയുള്ള ജനങ്ങള്, സംസ്കാരം ഇതിനെ മനസ്സിലാക്കാനും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസത്തിന്റെ വേറെ തലത്തിലേക്ക് നമുക്ക് ചിന്തിക്കാനും പറ്റുന്ന ഒരു അന്തരീക്ഷം എനിക്ക് ഇവിടെ കിട്ടി. അപ്പം ഈ സെമിനാറിന് എന്നെ വിളിച്ച, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ സഞ്ജീവ് സാറിനെയും വിളിച്ച അനൂപ് സാറിനും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഈ ലെക്ചറിന്റെ ഓർഗനൈസേഴ്സിനും എല്ലാവർക്കും ഒരിക്കൽ കൂടി നന്ദി പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ട് ഈ പ്രസന്റേഷൻ ഞാൻ ഇവിടെ കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ചെയ്യുകയാണ്. നമുക്കിനി ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ ആൻസർ സെഷനിലേക്ക് കടക്കാം. So let us enter into the question answer session. Let me check the question. Yeah. So ആർക്കാർക്ക് എന്തെങ്കിലും സംശയം ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ, if you have any doubts we can ask. But by the way, Sanjeev sir, I got some questions. This question, first question, let me take you in this way. This is the role of Christian missionaries. Somebody raised a question on the role of Christian missionaries and how it reflected in tribal uprising. Because you, in the talk, there was a question from your side. There was a comment from your side that the Christian missionaries and their activities that resulted in uprising of tribals.
Okay.
So would you elaborate?
Just a minute.
Yeah.
As we have already discussed, this is a pertinent question. With the coming of the Christian missionaries, if you try to see, they have played a very major role in two fields. One is education and other is the medical facilities. They built hospitals and they were able to go to areas where others were not going. That was, if you see the area of Jharkhand, if you see the Christian missionary like the Lutheran Church, they were present right in the beginning of the 19th century. And areas like Khuti, it's some 100 kilometers from Ranchi, the capital city. So they were present there. So their presence was very much there. And if you try to see, analyze just one of the movement like the Munda uprising, so somehow they felt disturbed by their presence, and the tribals taking to leaving their original cult or religion and taking to Christianity. So in a way that played a role as far as if you can see the Munda uprising in Jharkhand. So that was, but only Christian missionary was not one of the reasons. We already had talked mainly the British colonial land tenancy rules, regulations, and followed by the role of the non-tribals, mainly the landlords and the moneylenders, followed by the Christian missionaries. So what we can say, they were also one of the reasons, because somehow, if you see, many of the tribals did embrace Christianity. And in a region like Jharkhand, if you will go, it's not only Catholics, because Lutheran church, they were Protestants. The Protestant church was also very much there. And it was one of the contributory factors for the tribal movement, but not all the movements. But what particularly we are talking about, the Birsa movement. The Birsa movement, it played an important role, because Birsa took a religious angle to his, by declaring that we have only one God, you should worship them. And the followers declared Birsa Munda also as Bhagwan. So I hope it answers your question.
ഇതിന്റെ ഒരു ആഡ് ഓൺ പോയിന്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്, ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് സാർ, മേ ഐ സ്പീക്ക് ഇൻ മലയാളം?
No, it's okay. I will also learn a few Malayalam. I tried to speak one line in Malayalam in the beginning.
ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് ഓഫീസേഴ്സ്, ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് ഈസ്റ്റ് ഇന്ത്യ കമ്പനിയുടെ ഒരു ഹിഡൻ അജണ്ട എന്ന് വേണമെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് പറയാം. അവരുടെ മിഷനറീസ് പല ഉൾനാടൻ ഗ്രാമങ്ങളിൽ എത്തിപ്പെടുകയും അവിടുത്തെ ആൾക്കാരെ സഹായിക്കുന്നതിൻ്റെ ഒരു പേരിൽ അവിടുത്തെ ആൾക്കാരെ ഫോഴ്സ്ഫുള്ളി കൺവേർട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു സിസ്റ്റം നമുക്ക് കാണാൻ പറ്റും. അപ്പോൾ അവിടുത്തെ തുടർന്ന് വന്നിരുന്ന അവിടുത്തെ സംസ്കാരം, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അവിടുത്തെ ആൾക്കാരുടെ ആരാധനാക്രമങ്ങളും ജീവിത രീതികളും, ഇതിനൊക്കെ പെട്ടെന്ന് ഒരു മാറ്റം വരുമ്പോൾ അതിന്റെ ആ ചലഞ്ച്, ആ ചേഞ്ച് ആണ് ഒരു റീസൺ ആയിട്ട് നമുക്ക് കണക്കാക്കാൻ പറ്റുക. പ്രത്യേകിച്ചും ട്രൈബൽസിന്റെ ഇടയിൽ നമുക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും അറിയാം, അവരുടേതായിട്ടുള്ള രീതികൾ, ജീവിത രീതികൾ, അതിന് വരുന്ന മാറ്റം. രണ്ടാമത്, ഇമ്പോസ്ഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു റിലീജിയൻ, അതിന്റെ പ്രിൻസിപ്പിൾസ്, ക്രിസ്ത്യൻ ഫിലോസഫി അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ക്രിസ്ത്യൻ റിലീജിയൻ, അത് പുറത്തുനിന്ന് വന്നൊരു ഫിലോസഫിയാണ്. അപ്പൊ അതിനെ ആക്സെപ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ സാധാരണക്കാരായ മനുഷ്യർക്കും വിഷമതകളുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ അതൊരു മസീവായിട്ടുള്ള സ്കെയിലിൽ, ഒരു ലാർജ് സ്കെയിലിനെ ഇമ്പാക്ട് ചെയ്ത് ഒരു അപ്രൈസിംഗിലേക്ക് നയിച്ചു എന്ന് നമുക്ക് വേണമെങ്കിൽ പറയാം. ഇത് മറ്റുള്ള നാടുകളിൽ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കേരളം പോലെയുള്ള സ്ഥലങ്ങളിൽ നമുക്കിത് കാണാൻ കഴിയില്ല, വളരെ കുറവാണ് അവിടെ കാണുന്നത്. ഇനി എന്തെങ്കിലും ഡൗട്ട് ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ ഒരു ചാറ്റ് ബോക്സിൽ ഇട്ടാൽ നന്നായിരിക്കും. Shall I go forward?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, we have another question on the role of women. So how do you see the role of women in this tribal uprising?
Yeah. See, in the whole historiography, what you see, that when I talked about the subaltern history, I tried to focus since 1980s. The focus shifted, that the role of women should also be studied, and the role of peasants, role of artisans, role of marginalized sections like the Dalits. But women as such, even if you see the Gandhian movement, which was a mass movement, and women participated in large number, what we find that the voices of the women at large, if you try to count how many women were there, if you will take the name of Sarojini Naidu or Aruna Asaf Ali or few more, but beyond them, they were the masses who are not numbered or they are not named, but they were a part of the mass movement. In the tribal movement also, what you will see, because tribal culture being an egalitarian society, the masses consisted of women also. But as far as women movement are concerned, we have two great examples in the Indian history. One is the Telangana movement in South India. I'm giving example from South India, Telangana movement in Andhra Pradesh, in the Telangana region, because now Telangana is a separate state, where women, especially tribal women, they played a very important role. And you have another example in Bengal, that is the Tevaga. The Tevaga women played a very important role, Tevaga movement in Bengal. These are all related to the Land Tenancy Act. And here women, how women, the masses, and fortunately or unfortunately, what you that these are not documented, but the work has been going on. And what we see that women, their role in Tevaga movement or their role in the Telangana movement, they are being studied, and the tribal women, how they played a major role is being discussed. So that's a part of the history where we need to explore more. We need to explore more, but they did play a very major role. So next question. I hope it answers your question.
Yes, sir.
Satisfies
Thank you. Thank you very much for answering this question. Any further elaboration is required? Shall I go for the next question? I didn't
Sir?
note down the name. Yeah.
Sir, hello,
Yeah.
hello, hello,
Yes, sir. Yes,
hello,
sir.
sir. I am asking from Wayanad, where the tribal people, their history of freedom is not properly represented in historical untold stories that we have represented in freedom fighting history in India. And can you mention anything about it?
Sir, may I make it clear to you, Sanjeev sir?
Hello, hello.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I am.
If you write in the chat
audible
box, I
to-
will read it.
I am
Krishnan,
audible
Krishnan,
to you,
please
sir.
write in the chat box.
I am audible to
Please
you,
write in the chat
sir.
box.
Yeah.
കൃഷ്ണൻ ചേട്ടാ കേൾക്കാം. കൃഷ്ണൻ മുതിമൂല
Yes,
അല്ലേ?
sir. Yeah. Yeah.
ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ നോട്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഈ പറയുന്ന
Please write in the chat box.
സഞ്ജീവ് സർ, may I answer this question?
Sir,
Yeah,
tribal history.
Carry on.
That is a freedom fighting field that has been properly represented, but that has not been described the historians as far as possibly in our historical description. And can you make any description on it?
Yes, sir. Sanjeev sir, can you name some of the
Okay, sir.
history books referred to college levels? Sanjeev sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Yes.
Can you please tell me the name of some authors who write on history and whose books are
Hello.
recommended at a college or university level?
The tribal history, I think Birsa Munda K. Suresh Kumar.
Yeah.
K. Suresh Kumar.
Yeah.
K. Suresh Kumar
yeah.
is an authentic writer. He was the Director General of Anthropological Survey of India.
Okay.
Okay. And a great scholar.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay. Anup sir,
And
can you just
there is a historical representation as far as this
കൃഷ്ണ
that has
സാറെ
been
കേൾക്കാം.
properly-
Sir, I would appreciate.
that has been not
Sir, the
properly.
voice is breaking. Krishna,
Yeah, sir.
Krishna,
That
just a
has
minute.
been-
Your voice is breaking. I would appreciate if you could write it on the chat box. Please write your question in the chat box because the
represented
voice is
in our
breaking.
historical books. Sir, I'm not able to do that. And Anup sir, can you do that? Anup sir.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes,
Anup
sir. Yes, sir.
Can you
I
write
will
these
write.
things?
I will write. Okay,
in the
okay,
chat box?
okay. Please mute. Okay.
You,
Ah.
sir, Anup sir, you write these things that so many revolts are there in India.
Please
From
write it
the
on
various
Sadhu
parts
sir.
of
Any
the-
next question?
Yeah, sir.
Yes, sir.
One more
Krishna
thing,
sir. I understand
Yeah.
the question.
Yeah. Sir,
Okay, thank you.
that means
I
my
will write. I will
question is
definitely
that.
write. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay.
Sir, Sanjeev sir, we have a question from a participant, and this is on distortion of the past. So, how do you find this in history writing, or what is your comment on this? Could you hear me, sir? Hello. Hello. Sir, am I audible? Sanjeev sir, am I audible to you? Anup sir, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear.
Sanjeev sir, there is a question to you, and this question is on distortion of past or distortion of. Hello.
Yeah. Yes. It's audible.
Yeah, I repeat this question. This is on distortion of the past or distortion of the history. So how do you see from as a history teacher or historian?
No, if you try to focus on unsung heroes, that is connected with that question. Is that, sir?
Sir, I could only note down these 2 points.
Yeah.
So
What
can
are
you
the 2
quickly
points,
make a
please?
comment? This is the distortion of the past.
By?
No, it is like maybe historians' effort through their perception, they wrote the history, but ultimately that resulted in giving maybe a wrong picture of the real past. Maybe it can be interpreted like
Just my
that.
comment on that. My comment on that. Okay, okay. It's a good question, a good intervention. But just as in the beginning of my lecture, I told you that historiography or the art of writing history has many trends. Nationalist historians have projected history in their own way, the imperialist, and then we have the Marxist, the feminist, and the subaltern. But what you want distorting of the facts, I think in history, when you read about historiography, one thing that is focused, and we teach our students at BA final or undergraduate, postgraduate, that history should be near to objectivity. It cannot be 100% objective, but it should not be near to subjectivity. And objectivity and historical and analytical writing shows that key distortion of the facts should not. Facts can be interpreted in different ways by different historical trends, but facts should not be distorted. Number one. Number two, if you try to focus on history writing at the local level, just as Saiju sir made a very wonderful presentation regarding the role of Banaras Hindu University and the nearby, like the Kakuri and the Kakuri heroes and the friends of Bhagat Singh. But somehow these people do not get much representation at a national level or in the history writing or history syllabus. But what we can do that we should have a tendency that a paper should include the local history also, because at the global level, at national level, we study everything, but people should, like one was Chittu Pandey in Balia. Chittu Pandey Chowk is also there. But what we need to say that people should also be aware of the local heroes who have played a major important role. One a contemporary example I will give you, that many of our army persons or paramilitary forces, they get martyred during whatever government duty they are doing, but they appear in the newspaper and they fade away. But what happens if you try to name a road after him, or you make a bust of him, or you try to name a school after him, or whatever, then that in a way you keep your tradition alive. That is a way of keeping the local tradition alive. Okay, and I don't think it would be a distortion of history, because at the local level we need to project the contribution of our local heroes.
So thank you, sir.
I think I have answered your question, which
Yeah.
was in the chat box.
Yeah. So Anup sir, last question.
Sanjay sir,
Yeah.
Sanjay sir, I repeat the question of Mr. Krishnamurthy Mula. Sir, how much representation is possible of the tribal resistance of Wayanad in Indian national
Question is
movement?
not clear. Can you write in the chat
Sir?
box?
Okay, sir.
Voice is breaking. I hope the students of this college, NMSM Government College, Kalpeta, have benefited. Representation of tribals of Wayanad in Indian freedom movement. So no, I don't have any expertise on that. So I will not be able to see, because if it's a tribal area, I certainly think that the tribals may have played a role there, and that need to be explored. I think that needs to be explored if it is not yet explored. I think local level or state level historians would be in a more better position to handle it. Representation of tribals of Wayanad in Indian freedom movement.
Sir, it is underrepresented. By the way, I would admit that. Yeah. I hope that Krishnan sir would agree with me in this point. Our historians were more after major incidents and renowned people. in an effort to write history,
Sir.
they may have. Yeah.
Sir, I am Krishnan, sir. May I ask one more questions? That is the tribal revolt that has been that has been represented everywhere. But actually, is there any description about in any books that have been see these things that has been not written in any form, and some remote have been represented in textbooks only, and that that has to know it.
Sir, I completely agree with your point.
Yes,
let
sir.
us make an understanding that every state, the teachers come from the background of history. They should
sir.
also think of identifying such a heroes, identifying that events which are not represented in our history, so that.
Sir, this is actually an identical crisis, sir. Actually,
Okay.
an
Okay.
identical crisis. That thing is not at all represented in printed or online form.
Sir, it will come. You don't have to worry. There are people working from different places, even may not
See, crisis is
necessarily
there.
from.
See,
Yeah.
revolt that has been taken place.
Krishnan sir, my intervention. In the last 3-4 years.
Or recommended or recorded.
Krishnan sir, just my intervention. In the last 4-5 years,
Sir?
a number
Hello?
of projects have been taken up in ICSSR,
Okay.
and this has
Okay.
been related to many of the tribals and marginalized sections of the society, and trying to codify the oral tradition, because many of the tribal societies studies where their culture, their society need to be codified, their tribal songs, their tribal culture, their tribal festivals. So they need documentation, and I think ICSSR has sanctioned number of projects which scholars from all over India are doing. And in that also, one of the component may be their what is followed from their generation to generation, codifying from old people who are present, what was their role of their grandfather or their grandfather and great grandfather in the Indian national movement or in the tribal movements. So that has been taken up, I think.
Sir, that is properly represented, sir. That means the history has to focus on the matter that has to be written. See, this is only an oral tradition that we are following, sir. Actually, the written documents that is not available today, sir.
So there is a need to do that.
Yes, sir.
There is a need to do that, and ICSSR is working in that field, I think.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Krishna sir, shall we conclude?
Thank you. Yes, sir. Okay.
So let me take this opportunity to thank Dr. Sanjeev once again
Namaskar.
for coming out with a wonderful talk on the area which we never heard before. Even I am in Banaras, but I hardly knew about the leaders of tribes. It was a very insightful and enlightening session. I'm sure all the students who joined would be benefited today. ഇത്രയും നേരം ഞങ്ങളോടുകൂടി ക്ഷമയോടുകൂടി ഈ പ്രസന്റേഷൻ കേൾക്കുകയും ഈ സെഷൻ അറ്റൻഡ് ചെയ്യുകയും ചെയ്ത എല്ലാ അധ്യാപകർക്കും അനധ്യാപകർക്കും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ വിദ്യാർത്ഥികൾക്കും ഹാർദവമായ നന്ദി. എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നത് എല്ലാവർക്കും കുറച്ചെങ്കിലും കാര്യങ്ങൾ മനസ്സിലാക്കാൻ കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്. എന്തെങ്കിലും ഡൗട്ട് ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് ഇനി മുന്നേ നമ്മുടെ കോണ്ടാക്ട് ഉണ്ട്, നിങ്ങൾക്ക് കണക്ട് ചെയ്യാവുന്നതാണ്. ഓവർ ടു അനൂപ് സർ, the organizing team.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Shaiju PJ and Dr. Sanjeev Kumar. So I also thank you, the participants, for your questions. So now I invite Srimati Suja KS, Head of PG Department of History, NMSM College, for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Adira. Am I audible?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay. Respected Shaji sir, our principal and chair of this session, our most valued guest, Dr. Sanjeev Kumar and Dr. Shaiju from Banaras Hindu University, and faculties from other colleges, my colleagues, and my dear students. It is my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. At first, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to our principal who chaired this session, Dr. Shajita Devus. Who in midst of his busy schedule, he wasted a lot of time over our session. I am extending my gratitude to him. Thank you, sir. The next one is our chief guest, Dr. Sanjeev sir. He is from Vasanta College, Banaras Hindu University, for his thought-provoking session on the grassroots level history or the local uprisers like Santal Rebellion. I am utilizing this opportunity to extend a warm gratitude to you, sir, for your informative session. Thank you, sir. The next one is our chief guest, Shaiju sir, also from Banaras Hindu University, who chaired this session and had given valuable information about the historical background of Varanasi. I am proud of you, sir, as you are as you belong to our native place, Pulpalli, and being with us in this evening and give us a valuable and informative session. Next, I have to express our deep thank you to our coordinator of this program, Dr. Anup Tangachan, who had utilized more than 1 week's effort for the success of this program. I am congratulating Dr. Anup Tangachan and my dear colleagues, Vinisha MS of BSc Computer Science Department, who had provided us with the technical facilities for the smooth conducting of this session, and Adira George, who anchored this session, and other colleagues of my college who had worked hard for the success of this program. Now I am utilizing this opportunity to extend my warm regards and gratitude to delegates from other colleges such as Ranjit sir, Kala teacher, Shiba teacher, and Shiga teacher. Thank you, teachers. And I am expressing my sincere thanks to my students who had been participating in this session and making this session more vital with their timely intervention. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And with this, I guess we come to the end of this session. Thank you all once again for joining the program.